Do you want to use content marketing to grow your consulting business, but you're struggling to create videos or posts that actually attract the right clients to your business? Well, you're not alone, because I talk to fellow consultants every day who tell me they have all this knowledge and experience, but they don't know how to talk about it in a way that makes their ideal clients want to work with them. So today I'm going to show you a proven system for creating content that I use for myself and with my clients. And I've developed this in over 4 years on YouTube with more than 100 videos posted that got over 1 million views. But I've also used this system for LinkedIn, podcasting, newsletters, and blogging, and it works just as well. Using this should make sure that every piece of content you post brings your clients one step closer to working with you and even makes them more qualified to work with you and get better results when they do. And to make it easy for you to implement this system, I have turned this video into a one-page content creation blueprint for consultants, which includes all the resources I'll be mentioning throughout the video, and you can download that for free using the link below. So to start, you have to understand a small but powerful mindset shift that is going to change everything about the way you create content. And the best way I've seen anyone put this is this quote by David Fields: "Consulting isn't about you, it's about them." He also refers to this as right side up thinking, where you put your client at the top and you focus on what they want and need, not on yourself. And I think if you get this right, it really shows in your content and it sets you apart from, let's be honest, most other consultants. And so if you apply right side up thinking to content marketing, here's what that looks like. So the typical consultant mindset when creating content is to worry about what prospects think about you. But if you think right side up, you worry only about what prospects think about themselves. Rather than using marketing channels and formats you're comfortable with, you want to use marketing channels and formats they pay attention to. And rather than centering your content around your capabilities, your approaches, your offerings, your background, you want to center it around their situation, their problems, their aspirations, their potential wins. So always in focus should be their world, helping them improve their lives. And anything you're offering them, even free content, needs to be centered around their needs and wants, not your capabilities. And now that we have internalized this mindset, we're ready to make some powerful client-focused content. And the first step of turning our expertise into content that attracts the right clients is about overcoming what I see as the most common problem when consultants try to generate sales online. And that's utter confusion of your clients. Because when you go from mainly network and referral marketing to digital marketing, you no longer have the luxury of long-winded explanations of what clients you help and what you help them achieve. This is both because people tend to give you the benefit of the doubt if someone they trust has introduced them to you, and because that person probably already mentioned what they think you could do for them. This doesn't happen online. Your business needs to be incredibly targeted and self-explanatory so that your content can be targeted and self-explanatory, and so that people can discover you online and know what you're about without anyone explaining it to them. So in this first step, I want you to clearly define who you help and what you help them do. Who is your ideal client and what problem do you help them solve, or what aspiration do you help them achieve? Your positioning needs to be so clear and specific that anyone can understand it. Now, if you're anything like most consultants, you're probably going, I solve all kinds of problems for all kinds of clients. There's no way I can turn that into one clear and specific positioning. I get it. That's normal. It works in person, but we're going to have to do something to make it work online. And here's what I would do. Don't worry about capturing your entire business in your online positioning. Just think about the entry point. What is the problem that typically brings clients in the door, and what do those clients have in common? And then we're going to focus your content marketing around that problem and that client. And once they're your client, you can always tell them about all the other things you can also help them with. And you can always expand your content and online offering to include more options later. But if you start out with all kinds of content and all kinds of offers, all you're going to achieve is confused viewers. And as they say, confused people don't buy. And for bonus points, I want you to plaster your positioning everywhere. Put it on your profile banner, your tagline, your about, everywhere you can. Not just so your potential clients see it, but also as a daily reminder that this is who you're helping and what you're helping them with. Because if all you do is make sure that all your content is about this one client and this one problem, you're going to be far ahead of at least 90% of consultants. Don't believe me? Just think about how many consultants you've come across where you thought, Just what do you even do? Exactly. Now that we know who you're targeting and what you're helping them achieve with your content, you might have guessed that it's time to come up with some content ideas, but maybe not in the way you are thinking. I actually think there are two possible approaches to ideation. There's what I call bottom-up ideation and top-down ideation. Here's what I mean by that. So bottom-up ideation is when you start by brainstorming all of your knowledge, all your methods and frameworks, all of your experiences and stories, and you think, what content could I make out of this? Now, there's nothing wrong with this approach, and I use it all the time. Creating content is a creative task after all, and we gotta do whatever gets the creative juices flowing. But I don't think it's enough, and as consultants, I think we tend to focus too much on this approach, which I guess is ironic since most consultants I know take pride in being top-down thinkers, which is why I think you'll be able to quickly adapt the second approach as well, top-down ideation. This is when you start with your target client and the main problem you help them solve, and you ask, what is everything a potential client needs to know or believe to become my client? How can I get them a quick first win? What's the first step they need to take? And then what's the step after that? And also, what can I teach my future client to make them a dream to work with because they already come with the right mindset and foundational knowledge, and I just need to help them implement it. If this reminds you of the mindset shift we talked about in the beginning, you're right. This is again all about putting the client's wants and needs first and focusing on their journey and their perspective. But I still think there's a place for bottom-up ideation, which is why this is our step 2. The way I think of it is that everything you come up with during bottom-up ideation is sort of like a supermarket that you can go to whenever you need a story or a framework or a piece of advice to plug into your top-down ideas. And whenever you have a new idea or learn a new lesson, you can put it into your supermarket, put it in the cooler, and it's going to be right there when you need it. And importantly, this will keep you from randomly posting about it with no strategy. So if you haven't already, get it all out there, everything you know as an expert, everything you've experienced, everything you so badly want to talk about, and then exit the supermarket and only come back with a shopping list. Okay, this might be a bit drastic, but I just want to prevent you from trashing your marketing channel with ineffective content. If you're dying to share something that just happened to you, or a lesson you learned, or an event you visited, go ahead. But the reason I don't think you should build the bulk of your content around bottom-up ideation is that you will end up with a mess of a marketing channel. Only once you've built a solid foundation of top-down content that teaches your clients everything they need to know to become a successful client of yours, only when that is covered is when it's fine to create some content just because you want to. Okay, so how do we get to this point? I guess you already know what step 3 is going to be. It's top-down ideation. And how this works is you write down your target client and problem at the top, and then you break this down into either topics they need to learn about or questions they need answered to be able to solve that problem, or steps they need to take to start solving that problem. So for example, when I was targeting small manufacturing businesses and helping them remove inefficiencies in their production, I had this broken down into optimizing changeovers, reducing lead times, improving quality, improving flexibility, and reducing inventory, which are all individual wins a manufacturing business can aim for to remove inefficiencies. And I could break each of these down even further into subtopics, steps, or questions if I want to generate more content ideas. And to give you another example, my business is now helping expert consultants grow their business online, which I could break down into creating content that attracts your ideal clients, building an effective digital sales funnel, scaling your offers, and positioning your consulting business. A lot of people refer to this as content pillars or content buckets because these are basically topics you can create content about over and over, every time from a different angle or answering a different question out of all the topics and questions you collected. And if you find out that 1 or 2 topics work really well for your audience, then do more of those. And if a topic repeatedly doesn't do well, you can look for another topic or content pillar to test and maybe replace it with. And if you create content to address all these different topics, questions, and steps, your marketing channel basically becomes a knowledge base that helps your target clients understand their problem, understand the solution, and that shows them that you can help them, all of which is a requirement for them to hire you. So you are moving them along on the journey to becoming your client. Now, as a next step it's important that we don't create the content yet, because we first need to make sure that your ideal clients will actually pay attention to your content. We don't want to waste time creating content that can't get their attention. So step number 4 is packaging. I like to think of this as literally wrapping your idea in gift wrap and tying it up with a bow. I mean, why do we do that with gifts? Well, we want the receiver to know that we've put a lot of effort into our gift to show them that we care about them and that they can expect to be happy about what's inside. And we want there to be a little surprise factor where they don't know exactly what's inside and are curious to open it. And I think the packaging of content works almost the same way, with one major difference. With content, the receiver doesn't actually know if the gift is meant for them. So we have to make that really clear with the packaging as well. So what exactly is the packaging? It's basically the part of the content that's responsible for creating the first impression, based on which you decide whether or not you want to see the whole thing. I've created a little overview for some different content types. So for example, for a YouTube video like this one, the packaging is the title and thumbnail, which decide whether or not you click on this video. For a blog post, it's the title and the subtitle if there's one. For a podcast, it's the title and episode artwork. For an email, the packaging consists of the subject line and preview text. For a text-based LinkedIn post, it would be the first 2 lines of text that show up before you have to click more to see the whole post. This first part of the content is also often called the hook. And for a short-form video like YouTube Shorts, TikTok, or Instagram Reels, the first few seconds of the video are what creates the first impression, and this is also called the hook. So then how do you come up with the packaging? There are 3 important things you need to know. Let me show you with an example. Let's say you're an operations consultant and using top-down thinking, you came up with the idea to create a video around how to know it's time to hire an operations consultant. Now you want to come up with a good title. The first thing you need to know is that when you're coming up with packaging options, you need to go for quantity first. Write down as many title variations as possible. This definitely gets easier with practice. I like to go for at least 20 different options because often we need to get the obvious ideas out of our system before we have a breakthrough. So we might get started with how to know it's time to hire an operations consultant, 5 signs it's time to hire an operations consultant, why your business needs an operations consultant. The second important thing to know is that we want to emphasize the benefits and possible results, not so much the features or methods, unless you're talking about a popular method that your ideal clients already care about. So again, this is about putting yourself in the client's shoes and thinking about their wants and needs. In this case, I don't think most business owners are dying to learn about operations consultants. So we need to focus more on the benefits, like saving time, saving money, scaling faster, and having less stress, like the secret weapon that can save your business time and money. Why your business is struggling to scale. Before you scale your business, do this. Or we could try something more specific. Let's say we have some numbers. We could do one decision is saving this business owner $58,000 a year. This proven method will make your business scale 43% faster. Okay, this might sound a little scammy to some people, so of course you want to test what works in your niche, but in my experience you want to lean a little bit more on the salesy side with your title, and then you can be nuanced and non-salesy in the content. And the third thing you need to know is that you don't have to come up with this all on your own. There are actually lots of proven title formats you can copy to get started. Here's a list of my favorite title formats, which I've collected over the years, which will also be on the one pager you can download. But let me show you how to use some of these. We could say why your small business can't grow. 5 years of business operations in 10 minutes. Too high operational costs? Do this. 10 ways to scale your small business in 2026. How to scale a small business without losing profitability. Copy this efficiency hack. It'll blow up your small business. Revealing a small business owner's growth strategy. Complete small business scaling checklist, start to finish. What happens if you hire an operations consultant for 6 weeks? You might have noticed that not all of these fit the original video idea anymore. And that's also why you want to do this before you start making the video, because this gives you the freedom to come up with the most attractive packaging possible without being limited because you already made the content. And these titles could work not only on YouTube, but also for a newsletter, blog, article, podcast episode, or even for a presentation, a white paper, or a workshop. For LinkedIn, you would slightly adjust this because you want more of a hook that prompts people to keep reading, but you can often just add a sentence before or after the title, and then it works for LinkedIn as well. If we just take the last example, we could add, for the past 5 years, I've been helping small business owners improve their efficiency. Here's what happens if you hire an operations consultant for 6 weeks. I'm going to add some templates for LinkedIn hooks to the content creation blueprint in case you want to write LinkedIn posts, but that's basically how it works. The next step is so important. We still don't create the content. No. That's what I used to do. And then I ended up with videos that, although they followed a strong title format, were super confusing to viewers and ended up performing poorly. So the important thing we need to do is get a second opinion, ideally from someone who also creates content, ideally from someone in your target audience. But even if the only person available is your neighbor or a random person on the street, that's still better than nothing, because the main thing we want to make sure is that your idea is crystal clear, that anyone can understand it. We don't want them to go, what does that mean? Because confusing our viewers is the highest risk we run, especially as consultants, since we love overcomplicating and being nuanced and stuff. And a quick word on that. Packaging and nuanced don't go together. Your content can be nuanced, in fact it should be, but your packaging cannot. In other words, you need to dumb it down in the title so that people understand it and feel smart and give your content a chance, and then you can tell them all about the nuances and the important details. Let me give you a real life example. I work with this consultancy in the sustainability space, or as they would call it, socio-ecological sustainability, which is an important differentiation. But which title would you click on? How sustainability makes businesses less likely to fail, or how following the principles of socio-ecological sustainability can reduce the risk of business failure. The second title sounds more like you're about to read an academic paper, and who's going to be excited by that idea? Well, probably not your busy clients. But if you're stuck in your expert bubble, you sometimes can see how your titles might take insider knowledge to understand that even your clients don't have. So always get feedback on your titles from someone outside of your bubble to make sure you're keeping it clear and simple. And what do you do with your ideas that you can turn into a clear and simple title that's attractive to your clients? Well, they fail this round and go back to the idea pile. Only the best ideas with great packaging make it to the final step, which is the moment we've all been waiting on, probably the only thing we thought about when we thought about turning our expertise into content, and that's actually creating the content. And no matter what kind of content you create, whether you're making videos, recording a podcast, writing a blog, or posting on LinkedIn, we need to follow the same 3 principles here. First, we need to identify the expectations raised by the title and make sure to fulfill them in the content itself. If your title promises 10 ways to scale your small business in 2026, you should probably include 10 ways to scale small businesses in the content. Second, you want to figure out the minimum information the viewer needs to understand to be able to get the result you promised them. So not the maximum information you could tell them, but the minimum information they need to know so that everything you're telling them is highly relevant. I would rather make fewer points and make them well, maybe add an example or a story to really drive the point home, than make a long list of points that leave the viewer feeling overwhelmed and confused. And third, you will hopefully be excited to hear this. As a consultant, you can actually take advantage of your ability and tendency to turn everything into a framework. For example, I structured this video as a 6-step content creation system, which hopefully made it much easier and more engaging to follow. It's a really simple framework that you can use for literally any type of content. If this was a LinkedIn post, I would probably just write down the 6 steps as a simple list, and I probably will make that exact post. While for a podcast, I might spend 10 minutes discussing each step, or for a blog post, I might turn each step into a section header. Since I started using frameworks in my content, it has made it much easier and faster for me to create, and the content ends up being more relevant and valuable for the viewers. Just make sure to keep the framework simple. So for example, 3 steps, or 1 4x4 matrix, or 5 lessons, not 27 steps, and only use one overall framework for each piece of content. Now that you know the 6 steps for turning your expertise into content, you can basically just repeat this system over and over, and as long as you keep learning and improving based on how your content performs, I can pretty much guarantee that you're gonna grow your consulting business online. But I've seen too many consultants sabotage their progress by making the same 5 avoidable mistakes, which is why I made this video to help you fix these mistakes fast and actually get the results you're working for.